So anyway, Corey, you remember in your old childhood a show called Bozo the Clown?
No, actually, Ian, I was one of those few traumatized students that, or young children that just didn't get to watch a lot of television as a child. But fill me in, would you?
Okay. Well, 80s children's show, Saturday morning, you had cartoons and you had Bozo the Clown. And it was kind of this kids variety show where it was sort of like a mini circus. One of my favorite things to watch was this game where kids would win prizes and toys, but they had to throw ping pong balls into buckets that were certain distances away. They were on the buckets were on the floor, not a table. Remember, this is a kids show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you're thinking of, oh, I could. If I had a ping pong ball and a cup, I could easily throw that, get there and there, and win that toy. And I so much want that new bicycle. But you would see all these kids throwing the ping pong balls, and they would miss. And you're going, come on, that is just so easy to do.
uh,
And out of everything I remember of the show, which, to be honest, isn't much, that's the one thing that stands out in my mind most of all.
isn't it? Aren't the Simpsons making fun of that with Krusty the Clown or something like that, or is he just kind of the?
No, I'm pretty sure it's probably a direct parody. I would not be surprised, because the hair going out like this, that was
Yeah.
Bozo.
Yeah, yeah, it had to be. I seem to remember his shows being "Hey kids" or however
Yep.
it was. Welcome to the Krusty and Clown Show.
Oh, yeah.
So what we got on the menu today, Ian?
Well, I've had a few questions from people about, well, if I'm running Linux, that means I can't run anything with Windows, and they just can't work together. They hate each other. And I try to tell people, well, that's not true. You can get them work together. You can share files. There's lots of possibilities. So today I wanted to talk about, how do you do that? How do you get Linux and Windows to play nicely together?
Okay.
And you have quite a bit of experience with that, and just recently, by the way.
Yeah, I actually just did a massive storage update. I got myself technically 16 terabytes, but with the way hard drive manufacturers advertise it as one number and it actually being a smaller number than that, and then putting it into a RAID array, it cut it down even more. Um, into RAID 5 for those who care. I have 12.73 terabytes of storage that I can work
Ooh.
with over my 500 gigabytes of storage that I previously had.
All right, now the next logical question is, what do you do with 12.7 terabytes
That's a good question. I when I
legally?
find the answer to that, when I find the answer to that, I will certainly let you know.
Okay,
Um, yeah, but
let's.
one of the things I originally had going with this server, the original one, was a file sharing over the network. And while Linux itself has its own network filing or file sharing system called NFS, which
Hmm.
stands for Network File Share, I think. Um, that particular piece of software is specifically designed for permanent file connections, so that if you wanted to, say, have your home directory on one server and then just run an operating system on a different machine,
Hmm.
you can set it up so that that machine would turn on, connect to that, and then it would just use that as your home directory.
Okay.
A myriad of possibilities along those same lines. Um, but I also, and a lot of people in this house who don't really use it, but most everybody these days uses Windows of some kind.
Yep.
Brings us back to our original topic. And to cover that, the open source community has created a fantastic piece of software called Samba. Don't ask me what it stands for. I used to know. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, you can just Wikipedia. And actually, they've released the new version 4, which is supposed to be better for making your own domain and
Hmm.
server management and all that other garbage. But the basic Samba, um, all it does is it pretends to be a Windows file share.
Uh-huh.
And you can set it up a myriad of ways to share files over the network, and anyone with a Windows, or for that matter, a Linux box these days,
Hmm.
can connect to it and use the files straight off of your server. And it works with file permissions. You can have just a guest account login, etc., etc. it makes it really, really simple
Okay,
compared to
cool.
speaking. Oftentimes, I found to setting up a Samba server is tons easier, especially with the way Windows has been doing its security over the
Yep.
last several years, revisions, what have you. It's often tons easier to just throw together a Samba server and share files that way.
Yep. Now, the server that you have set up, where did you get the software? And really, what makes it so much easier to deal with than working directly with a Samba server?
You mean a Windows
I'm
server?
sorry, Windows server. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You can get it anywhere. Actually, Samba is a software package that is included in pretty much every single Linux distro you could possibly imagine.
Hmm.
It's just so uniform, and especially all the ones that run with a GUI
Okay.
have some form of browsing at least built into them, so you can connect to it. So you can at least connect to other file share servers without having, and then, or to be able to browse the file network. Just put it
Okay.
that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, with the Windows people, I'm sorry. Will they be able to see these shared folders if they just click into My Computer, My Explorer? Do they have to type in certain internet addresses to find it? How does it work for them?
yeah. Assuming you have one set up already, either on a Windows box or a Linux box
Hmm.
using Samba or just Windows. The way to connect to it, if you don't know, is to open up Explorer in Windows and do / IP address / share. If you've got a good DNS, local DNS server, you can usually do / computer name / share. And then whether they've got file permissions set up for that or if it's just a anybody can get on and check this out
Yeah.
feature.
So essentially, if it's a guest account open for everybody to read, maybe not write to the drive, or you have separate accounts, so in each unique username, login, that whole idea. So again, you have several people in your house. You want to share files, but there's sometimes, well, I just want to store my files. Again, you've got 12.7 terabytes, but I don't. That not all my video. That again, like our show here, doesn't fit on the hard drive, so I move it to there. But I don't want somebody in the house taking a look at it and accidentally deleting it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And mentioning one of my old clips, I think. When I mentioned Xbox Media Center, and I think
Mm-hmm.
you remember that episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually still have that set up here at this new house, and that's the way I connect or I store my video files and my audio files. Is
Okay.
I've got the massive server hiding over here, and then I connect to it using Xbox Media Center across the
Mm-hmm.
network. Don't get me wrong, you could try and put all those on the Xbox, but I think
It
not
might
too
be a
many
little bit tough.
more than 20 space.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so that works out really well, except for there's some funky things that go on with the new version of Xbox Media Center for the Xbox, but that's a different topic entirely.
Yeah. All right. So now we know how to connect to the file server with Windows. But what about Linux? Do you have to enter in the same IP address? Is it using the //? What's different? Or the same?
A lot of things. In the typical way that Linux is, there's at least 6 or 7 or 10 different ways to do the same thing because someone saw, oh, you do that way. Okay, but I don't really want to do it that way. I want to do it this way plus that. And you get the idea. So
Yeah.
there's literally hundreds of ways. There's the standard command. There's a command line utility
Mm-hmm.
that it's called SMB client that you can browse it, and if you're just a fan of the command line, that's the way to go. There's 4 or 5 different actual GUI interfaces that are not dependent upon a particular desktop manager
Mm-hmm.
you can get. They're a little funky and not perfect. None of them are perfect. Don't get me wrong. None of them are perfect. So don't expect that, please. And then there's at least with Kubuntu KDE and GNOME, they both have KDE and GNOME being the desktop managers. What you see when you bring up your desktop and the icons and the menus, etc. They are they both have Samba built into them. Now, their particular methods of connecting to them are slightly different. GNOME, which is what I commonly use, even though it's got its quirks, you have the up in the left-hand corner of the screen, you've got the Places drop-down menu, and then you can click Connect to Server, and then a window will pop up. You pull a drop-down menu and say Windows File Share, and then you enter the IP address and the share name, and I think that's pretty much all you need. Click OK, and then tell it the subnet, which for most people is work group, so you don't even have to change. And password, or username, password, go. And that's for GNOME. KDE has something similar, but be warned, all of these are not perfect. And especially if you try to use the quote-unquote browse feature through Nautilus in GNOME, at the very least, it's slow and pretty much not guaranteed to work. I've had several cases where it's come up and be like, not able to actually search the network. What do you want from me? It didn't say that, but
yeah.
that's what it wants to do. Secretly, it's hard.